Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Happy Vlogmas? I don't know what I'm calling it yet, but I'm pre-filming, so happy December. It's December. Today we are going to be doing a pretty chill video. It's just a ranking video. I love ranking things. I love top 10s. I grew up watching like when Animal Planet had like top 10 deadliest whatever, or like top 10 weirdest. Like I love those shows. So that's what we're doing today. We are going to be going over my top 10 movies and kind of why they're in my top 10 and my love for them and why I love them. So if that sounds interesting to you, please hold tight. We're getting into it just a second. But I want to take a quick second and introduce myself. My name is Haley. Here are my socials, and this is my room of creativity, where I mainly focus on fantasy and makeup related things. Oh, my puppy is dreaming. Oh, goodness. If that sounds interesting to you, please consider subscribing and becoming a companion on my makeup quest. I usually put out videos on Tuesday and Thursday at 1 o'clock, but it is December, so you get a video every day. Let's get into the video. So, number 9 and number 10 and number 9 are related but not. For me, in my life, I had a period where I was coming to terms with a lot of love life things, and these two movies I watched at that time in my life, and I associated those two with that time in my life. I will probably never watch these movies again. Number 10, I will never watch again. Number 9 is ranked number 9 because I'm more likely to rewatch it in the future, where number 10 I just will never ever watch again. Number 10 is One Day, and One Day is a movie with Anne Hathaway and some dude who's not Anne Hathaway. And the premise of the movie is that these two hook up and then they hook up the night before graduation of college, and then they become best friends, and they're kind of what is that word, that term, unrequited lovers, or she like loves him, like they never are available at the same time, and so they become best friends, and it takes them a really long time through marriages and heartbreak, and it just takes them a really long time to get together. And you're at the end of the movie, and after all of the turmoil that you've been through, like watching them be really sad apart and their friendship breaking apart and then them getting together, and then Anne Hathaway gets hit by a bus. The day that they decide that they're trying to have a baby. So ripped a heart out. So yeah, that's just why is it my number 10? I'll never watch it again, but it was at a point in my life where I was dealing with something that I thought was similar to this story, so I have a really strong emotional tie to that movie, and like it doesn't have anything to do with my life now and who I am now, but it is a movie that I will always cherish for helping me through those emotions. So One Day is number 10, and if you've ever seen it, let me know how heartbroken you were at the end, because I for sure would. Every single time I watched it, I died, and I knew her death was coming, and I just always was very, very upset. Another movie along the same premise, and that is Atonement. It is about I think it's set in World War I, so number 1, the fashion is amazing, and it has Keira Knightley and, oh, what's that guy? McAvoy. That's his last name, McAvoy. I don't remember what his first name is. I want to say James, but my brain is not saying James is correct. So we're just going to go with Keira Knightley and McAvoy. They are your two kind of characters, and then her little sister. The premise of the movie is that McAvoy is a gardener and the war is about to start. The premise of the movie is really, it's not difficult to explain. Basically, the entire movie is a fabrication of this little girl who kind of ruined her sister's chances of love and probably being happy. So the little girl kind of says that something happened with this gardener who is played by McAvoy, and that really wasn't the case, and it got him in trouble. And so it's kind of going with the repercussions. The movie goes along with the repercussions of what happened in the very first scene. I know I'm not explaining this well, but it has the same emotional tie to it as One Day did, but this one I'm more likely to watch again because it wasn't as gut-wrenching. Like at the end you find out like the entire movie was a lie in the little girl's head to make herself feel better as she grew up, with the guilt of what she did when she was younger that kept her sister from really being happy. And like it's really sad because you're rooting for them the entire time and you're really happy for them. Like he makes it out of the war and they end up together, and he's dealing with PTSD, which they don't really know what that is yet. And Keira Knightley's a nurse, and like they get together in the end, and then you find out that it was all a lie. Like he died in war, and I think she died of something, drugs maybe. I'm not entirely positive what she died of. I haven't seen this movie in years, but the movie is very important to me. So that is number 9. That is Atonement. Number 8 is Corpse Bride. And the reason why Corpse Bride is even on my list is because I like it. It is a Halloween movie. It's a Tim Burton movie. It's really one of the only Tim Burton movies that I have like not a craving, but something always gets in my mind, and it's just a movie that I think about a lot. When I was making my list and I was reading it out loud to my husband, he's like, Corpse Bride? And I was like, yeah, Corpse Bride. It's not a movie that I make him watch, so I'm not surprised that he was kind of shocked that it was on the list, because it's not something that I really watch with other people, because I know, number one, my mom gets like Tim Burton makes my mom fall asleep, so I don't watch it with my mom. And it's not everybody's cup of tea when it comes to Tim Burton movies. Like I feel like there are so many more popular Tim Burton movies that people would prefer to watch than The Corpse Bride, but for some reason that one is just the one that I like the most. I think it's just like the blues and the grays and just like the comeuppance that the villain gets in the end is just, I don't know, like perfect, I say. Yeah, it's like everything about the movie is just like chef's kiss. It's just really it's a nice movie. I don't know, it's The Corpse Bride. It is my preferred Tim Burton movie. Number 7 is the... I've watched this movie, I don't even know how many times. Hello. Number 7 is Pride and Prejudice with, I struggled because I wanted to put like Becoming Jane on here too. I went through a huge Jane Austen like phase, and I watched Emma, I watched the original Pride and Prejudice, I watched this Pride and Prejudice with Keira Knightley. Excuse you. I watched this Pride and Prejudice with Keira Knightley. It was just, I'm not a super romantic like person, but this is my chick flick. This is my that kind of time era, rebelling against what a woman should be kind of thing gets me really in it. I don't know. A great movie all around. I love the score of it. I have a Pride and Prejudice channel on my Pandora that I listen to. It's just, I love the music. The scenery is great. The costumes are great. I really like to look at movies as a whole, and I really like to be impressed with everything, and Pride and Prejudice is something that just impresses me all around. So that is the only reason why it isn't ranked any higher, is because I haven't really been watching it as much as I used to. So that is really the only reason why it's not like, you know, top 5. So that is it. Pride and Prejudice is number 7. Number 6 is Scott Pilgrim versus the World. I went through a Michael Cera phase as well. That movie and Nick and Nora's Infinite Playlist and Juno, and there was another one, I don't remember, but probably my intermediate school days, so 5th grade, 6th grade, those were my movies, and I wanted to be Ramona my entire life. I thought she was so cool, and I was like, yes, I want to be Ramona. And now I'm just like, I realize I'm Aubrey Plaza's character. It's just like, yeah, I'm more like Aubrey Plaza than I will ever be like Ramona. Probably, I think. In my head, anyway. Yeah, I thought Ramona was super cool. Knives, you know, was gypped, and she's cool. I think my husband's actually played the game. I think so. And I think that's really cool. It's something that we watch together a lot. The soundtrack is awesome, and yeah, I just love Scott Pilgrim. It's a pretty chill movie. It's like not chill, like chill, but like to me it's a chill movie. I don't know. Whenever I don't know what to watch, I'll usually, my shoulder just popped if you heard it. Yeah, that is number 6. Before we crack into my top 5, I'm gonna do some honorable mentions really quickly. First is Ever After with Drew Barrymore. Obsessed. I love that movie so much. Like, I love that movie so much. It is, again, like Pride and Prejudice, it is my chick flick romantic feeling goodness, rebelling against what it was at the time. It is hands down my favorite iteration of Cinderella, and I think that it's really well made. The costumes, the music, it's just perfection. It's perfection. I'll watch that by myself if I'm feeling particularly sappy. But yeah, that and Pride and Prejudice, those kinds of movies are my like preferred romantic kind of movies. And then other two, Game Night, which has Rachel McAdams and Um, uh, the he has a show on Netflix. I don't know his name. I know him in a lot of things. I don't know his name. Anyway, him and Rachel McAdams have a friend game night with the dude that I cannot remember his name, his brother, who is really successful, and the dude that I don't remember his name is kind of resentful of that, and they end up kind of like, there was like on a wild night, it ends up, they usually play like board games and stuff like that, and his brother was like, I want to host game night. I want to host game night. You always host game night. Let me host. And so they do like one of those murder mystery things, but actual people come in and like kidnap his brother, and then we find out he's like not really successful. He's a smuggler, and are you shaking my light? And Rachel McAdams and her husband are just like thinking that it's still a game, but it's not a game. So like, and so yeah, it's a really good movie. It's probably hands down one of the best movies that has came out like in the past 5 years. So I would recommend you watch it. It's hilarious. Kyle and I love it. We own it. It's one of the first DVDs I had bought in years. Like, I don't even remember the last DVD I bought. I can't. Like DVD movie. That's the first DVD movie that we've bought in the entire time we've been together, and I didn't buy any in college, so game night, check it out. Last honorable mention is Mulan. It is my favorite Disney movie, and I do not want to talk about the live action one. What live action one? Mulan. That's it. Number 5 is The Dark Crystal. It is a pivotal movie for me as you see me now. I had it when I was a child, and when I was a kid, I would write and draw all the time. That's really all I did, was write and drew and watched fantasy stuff like The Dark Crystal. And my mom still has pictures of me drawing Skeksis for her. She says that they're really good. They're not that good. But it was just something that was very pivotal to my interest in fantasy things, and I was really, it was just something that I was always mesmerized by on the screen. So it continues to be, I own it still. It continues to be like a feel-good, nostalgic fantasy movie for me, and I love watching it to this day, and I'd recommend it, especially for kids, that you want to get into fantasy without having too much of a plot line that you have to follow. It's not hard at all. Like, when I was a kid, I remember basically the animals and the creatures and the adventure and stuff like that. Hey, baby. Oh. Cosmo got a haircut, guys. How are you? But yeah, I would recommend it. If you have kids and you like fantasy and you want to get them into fantasy, Dark Crystal, definitely, maybe see if they're into that. Number 4 and 3 took me a long time to decide. And I had to have Kyle help me. Don't jump too high. I had to have Kyle help me because I couldn't figure out which one to put at 4 and which one to put at 3. And ultimately, he was like, well, hi, Mr. Sun. Ultimately, he was like, whichever one you like more of the extended universe from, you should probably place higher. So for that reason, number 4 is Star Wars. And again, that was probably one of the early fantasy sci-fi things that I watched as a kid. I watched it with my dad. I didn't understand that they were connected when I was a kid for the most part. I wasn't really good at following plot lines. I was more, oh, really? I was more into the aesthetics of the worlds and the fashion and the music and the societal things more than the plot. Like, I really didn't understand that they were connected when I was really young. And then when I was older, I don't know why that took me 3 different ways to say. When I was older and I was realizing that they were connected, I would rewatch them, still not really understanding that the older ones from like the 80s were like the new ones. So like when the new ones with Anakin came out and they were supposed to come chronologically before everything else, that took me a minute to understand. But once I got a hold of, like, once I grew up in like high school and stuff, I would watch them for days, just like my number one. Not nearly as much as my number one, but I really liked the space aspect of it, the planets. I thought it was great escapism, which is mainly what my top 5 is escapism, is that fantasy, is that sci-fi element of movies that transport you somewhere. I love Star Wars for that reason, and I like the new ones as well. And I am lumping them together as a whole, and you'll see kind of why, because I have other franchises that are more than one movie as well, because I didn't really feel right picking just one movie from each franchise as my favorite movies, because that wouldn't be honest to how I feel about them. So yeah, that is Star Wars at number 4. Number 3 is Harry Potter. Basically, for the exact same reason I have Star Wars on my list is the reason why I have Harry Potter. It only ranks higher just because, like I said, when I was talking to Kyle, he was like, which one do you have more investment or interest in outside of the movies? And Harry Potter just is a little bit more, not a lot, but just enough. I do like the premise of the Fantastic Beasts movies, but not really the plot, if that makes sense. Like, I would have loved more of like a less dramatic Fantastic Beast. I would have liked it more if we followed like Newt around while he's getting these animals, more like a wild thornberry kind of like shenanigans, kind of like I would have preferred probably a show, honestly, instead of more movies, just because I don't think that it really needed to tie into Harry Potter as Harry Potter is. Like, I don't think that it needed to tie in with Dumbledore and everything. Like, I that's just my personal opinion. I am more invested in that, as well as like the creatures and the studies that the students do and the lore of Harry Potter. Just I have more knowledge and have been interested in it more deeply than I was into Star Wars. I'm kind of making a shift that way though, but as it stands right now, Harry Potter just outranks it just a little bit. Number 2 is Shrek. I love Shrek so much. It I emotionally connected to Shrek as a child. And I was like, I'm an ogre and I have layers. And nobody really loves me for me because I've never been myself with anybody. And I just need a Fiona. And my mom is so much like Donkey. It's ridiculous. Sometimes I call her Donkey because she is just outrageous. Those movies are probably the only ones out of like a series that I could definitively rank. The soundtrack is bomb, and the plots are just great. The jokes are great. I don't really have a huge like animation preference, but I just think Shrek hit so many things on the head for me when I watched it that just continued to stay a long time favorite of mine. It's just continued to stay a long time favorite of mine, and I don't see it ever be like moving. It has always been my number two. My number one and number two movies have not changed for years. And even though I don't watch Shrek as much as I used to, it's still, I feel exactly the same about it as I have for the entire time I've seen it, for my entire life. But yeah, that is number two. And number one is, can you guess? I want you guys to pause the video and guess. I know some people will know what my number one movies are, and that should give you a hint. It is more than one, like I said, with the Star Wars and the Harry Potter. I'm lumping them as a group of movies because I didn't feel right picking just one. I want you to let me know what you think my favorite movie is. I'm waiting. Okay, are you guys ready? My favorite movies are The Lord of the Rings. Like, The Lord of the Rings. I should really make dedicated just like videos on The Lord of the Rings. I will eventually get there, but like the amount of information that I need to put in them, it's a lot. I love The Lord of the Rings. I watched the Fellowship. My dad took me to the Fellowship of the Ring when it opened in theaters. I think I was like 6 or 7. I could have been a little bit older. The oldest I would be like 8. So my dad took me to go see the Fellowship of the Ring opening at the theaters. I did not make it through that movie. I hated it. I was terrified because I thought it was a scary movie. I made it to where the Nazgul are chasing the 4 hobbits through the Shire to Brandywine, to the Brandywine River, like the Buckleberry Ferry scene. That's where I stopped. I was like, you have to take me home. I'm going to die. My heart is gonna explode. I'm terrified. Yeah, so I was deathly afraid of this movie, and he's like, okay, like he wasn't really happy, but he took me home, and then he got the movies, and we watched them at home. And after I made it through that movie, and I made it through Two Towers, and I made it through The Return of the King, I have so many emotions. Good emotions, bad emotions, neutral emotions tied to watching those movies. I didn't realize how I never slept as a child. All I remember is waking up in the middle of the night, or waiting until everybody was asleep, or, you know, after fighting with myself, trying to get myself to sleep, just leaving my bed, going into my living room, and turning on one of those movies. It usually was The Two Towers. Sometimes I would watch The Fellowship. It really just depended on the kind of mood I was in, and how tired I was. If I was super tired and I wanted to just get a little more tired and go to sleep, I'd watch Fellowship. If I wasn't really tired, I'd start with The Two Towers. Um, I watched them for years. They've always been my number one movie. Every single time I watch them, I find something new in them. Those movies sparked a love for Tolkien in general. And I own so many books. I had to do a biography or an autobiography, whatever. I had to do a paper report on somebody in high school, and I chose him. And the world that he built, watching those movies, I felt was made for me. And it is my home in my head. It is my home in anxiety. It is my home in depression. It is my home in happiness. It has taught me a lot of things. It has helped me keep faith through a lot of things. And Lord of the Rings, I have to stop now because I could just go on. I really need to just make an entire video series, like breaking down. I don't even know what it would be about. Just me rambling about the Lord of the Rings, guys. Because it's my favorite movie. I cannot rank them. I will not rank them. I am not an avid hater of the Hobbit series. So if you're going to leave those comments, please don't. Do I love them as much as the Lord of the Rings? No. But the world in general is what I'm in love with. And anything that gets me to that world, I will happily take. So The Hobbit, while it's not the greatest, it's part of that world, and it is something that I do watch. But yeah, those were my top 10 movies. I really hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, please like, please subscribe. Give this video a thumbs up, and I will see you guys in the next one. Happy December, and bye!